discussion, opinion, problem and solution, and the two-part question. We're going to look at an example of each of these question types, and I'll show you how I planned and wrote a two-sentence introduction with my students for each one. First, let's look at a discussion question. For this type of question, you have to write about two sides of an issue. Here's an easy example to get us started. Some people think that it is more effective for students to study in groups, while others believe that it is better for them to study alone. Discuss both views and give your own opinion. When you've understood the question, you can start to plan your answer. To plan the introduction, just remember that we're trying to write two sentences. First, we introduce the topic. In this case, it's about studying in groups or studying alone. Next, second sentence, we need to plan a general answer to the question. I'm going to say that it's sometimes better to study alone, but usually better to study in a group. Now that I've planned the introduction, I can write these two sentences. So my first sentence: people have different views about the effectiveness of group study as opposed to working alone. Notice that I'm paraphrasing some people, others, by writing people have different views about. I'm using effectiveness instead of more effective, and I'm using the phrase as opposed to as a way of contrasting. As opposed to means instead of or rather than. The second sentence needs to be my answer. I need to cover both views and my own opinion. Here's my second sentence. While there are some benefits to studying independently, I believe that group work is usually more productive. By using while, I've compared and contrasted both sides of this issue. I've mentioned some benefits to studying independently, but then with a comma, I believe that group work is usually more productive. Again, some nice paraphrasing: studying independently instead of studying alone, productive instead of effective. One grammar point to notice is that to studying is correct. We often say there are advantages to doing something, there are benefits to doing something. So if you've learnt the rule that to shouldn't go with ing, that's not always true. This introduction is a great example of the method that I'm suggesting. Two easy, effective sentences that do what they need to do and cover the task. The second type of question for IELTS Writing Task 2 is the opinion question. For me, this is the most difficult type, and you'll see why in a moment. We have various choices of how to answer. Let's take an example question. Some people believe that unpaid community service should be a compulsory part of high school programs. To what extent do you agree or disagree? The word compulsory is important because that means they must do it, it's an obligation, and it's asking for your opinion. Do you agree or disagree? So we can't write about other people. Some people think this, other people think that. No, we need to write about our own opinion. Let's do our plan. Firstly, the topic, first sentence. What's the topic? Well, community service for all teenagers. Should all teenagers do this unpaid community service? Then we need an answer, and this is where it becomes difficult because you have three choices. You can either agree, or you can disagree, or you can try to have a balanced opinion when possible. Let's try writing our introduction, starting with the topic sentence. Instead of saying some people believe, I'm going to say it is sometimes argued that high school students should be made to do some work in their local communities. I'm just paraphrasing what the question is saying. Then the difficult part. If we agree, here's an example sentence. I completely agree that this kind of scheme would be a good idea. However, if we disagree, we could say, in my opinion, It would be wrong to force teenagers to do any kind of unsalaried work. In that case, I'm saying my opinion and it's wrong, so I'm disagreeing. A couple of good words to notice in this one. It would be wrong to force. Forcing teenagers to do something is paraphrasing of that word compulsory. Another good word I've found in that one is unsalaried work instead of unpaid. No salary, no pay, unsalaried. Our final sentence would be for a balanced opinion, if it's possible. I think it's not really possible to say I'm in the middle, I have a balanced opinion on this, because either something is compulsory or it's not. Compulsory is a very strong word. Either you must do it or you don't have to do it. However, if we want to mention both sides, maybe we can do it like this. While I disagree with the idea of making such programs compulsory, I do believe that voluntary community service could benefit young people. I'm again using this word while. While I disagree with the compulsory idea, contrast that with what I do believe. I do believe that voluntary community service could benefit young people. You've seen there 3 ways of answering this question. Let's look now at the third type of question for writing task 2, which is the problem and solution question. In this type you have to explain a problem and suggest some solutions. Here's an example. Many criminals re-offend after they have been punished. Why do some people continue to commit crimes after they have been punished, and what measures can be taken to tackle this problem? You can see why this is called a problem and solution question. The problem is, why do people continue to commit crimes? You have to explain that problem. And the solution that it's asking for are the measures. What measures can be taken to tackle the problem? Let's plan this in the normal way. Firstly, the topic. Criminals re-offending. Criminals committing crimes after they've been punished. And our answer, we need to cover the problems and the solutions. We're not going to give the exact problems and the exact solutions. That would be in the main body. But for our answer, we can just say there are several reasons and a variety of measures can be taken. We could also just plan who's going to take these measures. Maybe the government or governments of countries, maybe communities, societies. With those 2 planned sentences, we can write our introduction. The topic sentence again is going to be paraphrasing the idea in the question. It is true that punishments do not always deter criminals from committing more crimes. I often begin a problem and solution introduction with "it is true that," because we can accept that the problem is true. We have a problem and we're accepting it. It is true that punishments do not always deter criminals. Deter is a good word to use there. They meaning stop criminals or stop them from wanting to commit crimes. And the second sentence is going to be our answer, which includes these several reasons and a variety of measures. There are various reasons why offenders repeatedly break the law, but governments could certainly take steps to address this issue. Notice that I don't give the reasons yet, and I don't give the solutions or the steps. I'm just mentioning that there are various reasons and governments could take steps. You can see that there are some good examples of paraphrasing in this introduction. In the second sentence, we've got repeatedly break the law. I've used repeatedly instead of continue to, break the law instead of commit crimes. I've also used take steps to address this issue instead of measures to tackle the problem. So good paraphrasing, cover the 2 things that we need to cover, and that's our introduction done. Let's now go to the final type of question. The 4th type is what I call the 2-part question. In this, it's very similar to the problem and solution. You've just got 2 questions that you have to answer. Here's an example. As most people spend a major part of their adult life at work, job satisfaction is an important element of individual well-being. What factors contribute to job satisfaction? How realistic is the expectation of job satisfaction for all workers? Hopefully you can see the 2 question marks in there. There are 2 separate questions, which is why I call this a 2-part question. In your main body, you're going to write 1 paragraph about each of those questions. But let's plan our introduction, because today that's what we're focusing on. Again, in our plan we start with the topic. What's the topic of this? I think it would just be job satisfaction. People being happy in their jobs. And we have to cover the 2 questions in our answer. We have to cover several factors. What factors contribute to job satisfaction? I'm just going to say there are several. And answering the second question, I'm saying it's unrealistic or impossible to expect everybody to be satisfied or happy in their jobs. Now, using that plan, let's write those 2 sentences for our introduction. The first one, work plays a central role in our lives and we would all like to feel fulfilled professionally. What am I doing there? Again, as usual, I'm paraphrasing parts of the question. Instead of saying work is a major part of adult life, I've said work plays a central role in our lives. Instead of saying job satisfaction, I've said feel fulfilled professionally. That's a nice way of paraphrasing job satisfaction. So that's the topic. Now we need to answer the question. We need to cover those 2 questions. While a variety of factors may lead to job satisfaction, it would be unrealistic to expect everyone to be happy at work. Again, I'm using my favourite word, while, to introduce a sentence that has 2 elements. Firstly, the first question about the factors, and I've said a variety of factors may lead to job satisfaction. Instead of contribute, I've said lead to. Then the second part of my sentence after the comma, I'm answering the second question. It would be unrealistic to expect everyone to be happy at work. And I'm just using some simple words at the end there, happy at work, so that I don't repeat job satisfaction again.